Welcome to another edition of TM3Impact. Listen, I always get excited about shows, but I am so fired up about this show. I have someone across from me. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, trust me, you are going to want to share this podcast because this is going to be amazing, and I'm so fired up to have my guest here. But before we do that, I need to let you know we are sponsored by TM3 is brought to you by Luxury Home Magazine and Spanish Grove Academy, the #1 pre-K Spanish immersion in SA. And we got to make sure we give those shout outs to those amazing companies for sponsoring us. And so today I have Helen Costa-Giles. And I tell you that right? Giles?
Costa-Giles. Yeah.
Costa-Giles. Listen, I am so excited to have you here because for those, everybody's like, okay, well, who's Helen? Right? I'm going to have people like, listen, after this show, you're going to want to not only know you, they're going to know you, but they're going to want to know more about you. And I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you for being on the show. I got a CNN article on my feed on my phone. And it said, literally, and I have it right here, Texas mom lost 90 pounds. Now neighbors flock to her house for 5 a.m. workouts. And I started reading this article and I was like, I have to know who this is. And so that's why you're here. But more importantly, I just want to kind of go back, share your San Antonio story, Helen. Thanks again for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. I'm so glad you reached out. I was so excited, and I was just honored, and I'm glad that you got me in so quick. And it's just been a whirlwind. My San Antonio story. So I'm Canadian.
Okay.
I'm Canadian, and in 2007, in January, my company that I worked for, I was automotive before, opened up a facility in San Antonio. And I was in Canada. They'd asked me if I wanted to come and train. So in January 2007, I came up to train in the office. Okay. And I fell in love with San Antonio. Like, this city grabs you.
Yes, it does.
Right? It's like super small town feel, but huge.
Yeah.
And so I called my husband. I said, hey, they're hiring. What do you think? He's like, what? San Antonio? U.S.? Texas? What?
Yeah.
So anyways, so I did the training there. I spent a couple weeks in San Antonio, fell in love, talked to the director that was over here, and there was a couple job positions. But anyways, I ended up falling in end of spring.
Okay.
And there was a position that opened up. It was 3 levels below me. Okay. And I applied.
Oh, yeah.
And they called me right away. And they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, you're going to lose me here because I'm bored and I want something new and I love the city.
Yeah.
And so by the summertime, just after that, they said, okay, we'll move you, make you a lateral move. You can keep your position, come to San Antonio. And then we had to go through all the, custom stuff and immigration stuff, and everything got approved. And so by October, we were moving to San Antonio.
Holy cow. So October of 2017.
October
7.
2007. So from January to October.
What a really cool story.
Yeah.
Do most of your friends know that you're from Canada?
But some of them do. When I start talking, they're like, yeah, I kind of figured you're from somewhere.
Right, right. Now, that's very interesting. I know another friend of ours that she is from Canada. Both her and her husband moved here, and they love it. They do not want to go back. They love Texas. They're in, right? So, okay, so now go back a little bit further. So you're growing up in Canada. Did you have any idea where San Antonio was? Have you ever even heard of San Antonio?
The Alamo. And that's it, the Alamo, right? Because when we came here, I'm like, oh, that's what it is.
Right. Right. What did you think when you first saw the Alamo? I'm always curious.
Honestly, because you hear about it's so big, and I was like, wow, it's so small. But then we got a tour, and then when you're in, like there's a different feeling there.
Yeah, you realize. Well, I am super glad. What was this company? Can you share the name?
Yeah, it was Yazaki North America.
Okay.
And I was with them up until December, and I'm officially a corporate dropout now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're a really great company. I had to go somewhere else. I had to do something for me. And
yes.
Yeah.
It's okay. Okay. So that leads us to kind of a little bit to where we are today. But I'm imagining this article that just came out on CNN. Again, this was on my top feed on CNN. Right. It was the #1 story, Helen. Did you know that?
Everyone kept telling me.
It was the number one story. I'm literally in my closet because I always check the feed. I always check the little app. And this is for everybody. If you're listening, if you have an Apple, if you have an iPhone, go to the news app. You just need to peruse and look because just stay informed, people. Okay. So now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this story is awesome. So now take me back because in the story, you talk about a dire warning. There was a point where you had to come to grips with where you were. So talk about that.
Well, because in the corporate world, every year you have to do an annual health check, right? In order to be covered in benefits. So every year I had to go and do this annual checkup. And every year it was, hey, Helen, you're obese. Hey, Helen, you gotta lose weight. Helen, I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever.
At that point, what weight are we talking? If you don't mind me sharing.
I was like in the 200s.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And then in 2014, I went for my annual checkup. It was 220, and they called me back. They never called me back. They always just used to say, hey, your BMI is off the chart. But they called me back because all my results came back. And I was headed down a road of chronic health issues. And I was 36, and I had a little baby at home and a 3-year-old. And so that just, like, broke me apart. Right. And I had asked, and the doctor was like, he's explaining, because I didn't know any of these numbers meant, right?
Yeah.
And so he was explaining it to me, and I was like, of course, yeah, I get it. My mom, my dad, my grandfather, they all have this, right? This is hereditary, right? Of course I have it. And it was so funny. It was like a kick in the stomach. He's like, honey, these are not hereditary diseases. He's like, you inherited bad eating habits. Fix it. And it was like he took his leg and just right in the gut, right? And I'm like, and all I kept thinking about was my pantry, my freezer, and I'm like, and then my kids. And I'm like, here I am at 36, chronic health issues. If I don't change, my kids, what are they gonna look like when they're 13? And that was just like my drive home. I had so much like rage with myself and what I've done to myself and what I'm going to do to my kids. That was it. I came home and I slammed the results on my kitchen counter to my husband. I said, we are done. No more yo-yo dieting, no more quick fixes, no more junk, no more pills to lose weight. We are finding a way to do this.
Yeah. So I'm wondering that moment, because I know you talk about in the article where you literally got rid of everything processed. Like, just describe that, going through the shelves. I'm just imagining coming home and just seeing you. If I was like your husband, I'm just kind of looking, I'm just like, what is going on?
Man, we had nothing left, but it was so funny. We went through, like, I was looking at all of like labels and artificial this and then sugar, and I'm like, oh my God, this cereal's got like 40 grams of sugar in it. And like, I was just tossing things, right? And things that weren't new, like cans, like I was like putting it away to donate. I threw away a lot of food. We had 2 freezers. Why do we have 2 deep freezers? Because we had frozen pizzas, frozen burritos, frozen lasagnas, frozen everything. And I was just like, wow, look what I'm doing to myself. And then we ended up getting reluctantly, we got rid of the alcohol too. And that was awesome. My neighborhood page was very excited about that because I'm like, whoever wants it, come and get it.
Is that right?
Everything just went, right? At that time, we just need to focus on true health because my husband had some health issues too.
Right.
And we had nothing. I was like, oh, now what?
So how do you, I'm wondering, because, everybody talks about going cold turkey, right? Everybody talks about, I'm going to change. I'm trying to sit here and imagine, here you are, you've gotten this warning from a doctor, and now you're literally like, no, I'm seriously changing everything. Yeah. And I'm trying to like process that for the people listening who are sitting knowing they haven't been to a doctor in years. They're sitting knowing that they're hereditary. They know their family. They know the makeup, right? They know where they're at. They know. Everybody knows. Mm-hmm. But it's like, but we don't want to do anything. What was the difference? I know you said the kids, but was there something else underneath it?
I think for me, there was a couple things. I had to go back and get retested 6 months from there. And if
they told you that?
If I didn't, I'd be on medication. So I didn't want to be on medication. And I had this huge rage. I was so upset with myself. I was so disappointed because, my outsides never matched my insides. Like I wasn't that person that people like. I was always energetic. I have this energy, I can be very, very charismatic, and that's always been me, no matter what size was. But there was something inside of me that was dying, and it just took that moment to say, "Wake up, Helen! You
Yeah.
need everything. You need to align yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's just like I was walking around this costume, so I just knew I needed to do it for my kids because I didn't want them to be down the same road. And I needed to do it for myself because, like I said, my outsides did not match my insides. Like I look in the mirror and I'd be like, who are you? How did you get here? Right? And so, I did. I went cold turkey.
That's
I went,
cold turkey.
it's so funny. I tell people I kind of went balls to the wall. I went.
Yes, you
I went
did.
for it. And I coach a lot of people now, and not everybody can do that.
Right.
But
right.
I had a necessity,
Yeah.
and that necessity drove me.
Okay, so I'm gonna imagine that. What's your husband's name?
Gary.
Shout out to Gary, right? Because Gary's a trooper.
He is. He is.
He said, well, where are you taking my alcohol? Where is that going? I can only imagine, right? So shout out to Gary. But I'm standing on the outside and I'm imagining Gary watching this whole process. What were his thoughts in the beginning?
He went on the ride with me.
So he jumped in.
He lost 65 pounds while I lost 90.
Wow.
He's a very silent transformation. But he did. He turned his health around. He did everything with me.
That's
You know,
super cool.
Our workout schedule was very different when we started working out, but when it came to diet and nutrition, we did it together.
Okay. Yeah, and the food is so big. Talk about that piece, because I love what you said. You said you didn't really feel comfortable working out in the beginning. And I would imagine people listening to this podcast, in their mind, they're like, I'm not even in a place where I want to walk for a mile. I'm not even in a place where I want to think about that. Talk a little bit about that idea that you said, you know what, I want to lose a certain amount of weight until I get there. Talk about that.
Okay, so I was 220, and I wasn't very ambitious about my weight loss goals. I actually seeked out a woman who now is like my big sister online. She's in Canada, and I got some meal plans from her. And she'd ask, "What's your goal?" I'm like, "I just don't want to be 200 anymore. 20 pounds. I'm gonna be my life will change when I'm 199 pounds." That was like, because there was no way I was gonna say 90, 100 pounds. That just was never gonna come out of my mouth because I wouldn't have believed it. Okay. And but I said, let's chunk this out. And so that was what I did. So that was my goal. So I went to like a whole food diet with my husband. So we spent all Sunday prepping 5 meals a day, 7 days a week for us and the family. And all of a sudden I lost my entire weekend. And then at the end of the month, after doing this, clean eating, I went to H-E-B, shopped on the outside of H-E-B, produce, meat. And I lost a little bit of weight. I was still tired. And at the end of the month, I'm like, we're doing this right. And I can't sustain this.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's been a decade yo-yo dieting, and the one thing I thought was going to work for me wasn't, because it was taking me away from everything else.
Because you didn't see the results right away.
I didn't see massive results. I saw some weight loss, but my energy still sucked. Like I was still, like I'd come home from work, and my boys were young, and we'd come and sit, and you probably know this, I'd sit on the chair and be like, "Okay, boys, what movie do you want to watch? Because I can't play with you."
Yep.
Right? I have boys, and they're like, they want to play Hot Wheels on the floor, and I couldn't even get on the floor. So that's when I found another solution that helped me simplify my life.
Okay. Now, I think we have to stop because not stop the podcast, but I think this is so important because you had results. You just couldn't see them. Right? And I think about this when it comes to like when you're changing your life, people we're in an instant gratification world, right? It's the microwave principle versus the crock pot. You were in the crock pot and you couldn't see the change. And so I'm wondering, like, how did you keep going? Because I would imagine you probably were a little frustrated.
Yeah, I was. I was only frustrated because it just felt like a lot of work for me. And I was overwhelmed. And so I just kept thinking about. I actually had this mantra up, and I wish I had brought it or showed you guys. It might probably a lot on my social media, but it says, like, I'm so much stronger. I know how to eat better. I know how to move. I'm going to beat her because she's the old me. Ooh. Right? And I had this at work, and I had this in there, and I was just like, okay, like you have to. This is you against you, Helen. Like you got to be able to push back. Yeah. In order to make change, you have to change. And so that was a consistent thing for me. It was just like there's this part of me that has to die, right? Right? Not lose me, but there was a part of me that had to go. And it was a fight. Like every choice I made that day, not just once a day, but every day I had to fight that old Helen. Right?
Yeah.
It was habits. It was just habits, right?
Yeah.
But I called it me. It was my old me.
Well, I love that because I think there's so many people fighting the yo-yo diet, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people fighting this, I'm going to try this fad or I'm going to try that fad. But I think, and I love just when I saw your story, I was like, listen, there's so many people that need to hear your story because it's a story of you have to work.
Yes.
Right?
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. So talk about your food prep. Because I would imagine, do you still do this on that level or you've now dialed it into where maybe it doesn't take as much time as it used to?
Well, we have a different type. Like I'm not meal prepping 5 meals a day now. We do prep 3 meals a day because we actually have meal replacements on the other 2. Okay. So we meal replacement foods that we do because I'll tell you, flipping 14 omelets on a Sunday is like takes you forever. It's like scrambled eggs by the 4th omelet, to be honest. But it's a lot of time. It's a lot of prep in it, and I was a career mom, so I only had the weekends with my kids, so it really sucked being in the kitchen all day. And then it got to the point where it was like, my husband would help me, but now we still prep every Sunday.
Okay.
We still it's 5 years in, and we still prep. We do groceries online because. Listen, I'm all about convenience.
Yes.
Because let's face it, I do a lot of speaking engagements too, and I always ask everybody in the audience, how many people cook more than 2 meals a day?
Yeah.
And like 1% will put their hand up.
Yeah.
Right? People are looking for simplicity. We're just too busy. Yeah. And that was me. But I made it my excuse. Right? I made it my excuse. But, we have amazing grocery stores and things that are super easy and, meals don't need to be difficult. People think healthy is difficult. It's really not.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. That's very true. It's really speaks to intention.
Yeah.
Right? Being really intentional. I'm doing a mastermind on John Maxwell's book, Intentional Living. And that entire book is just be intentional about what you want to do and things can start to happen. So you get to a point, you're not working out at all, right? You're just in the grind. You're trying to figure out this food thing. And according to the article, 6 months, was it 6 months?
It was. And you know what? And I love that you really talk about mindset a lot. And one thing I tell everybody is, so I tried to work out my first couple weeks. I had a workout plan from my friend and it said to do a burpee. And I went down and I rolled over and got back up and said, this is not happening.
You're like, I'm out.
That's not happening again. I am not, burpees are no way, ever again. And so that burpee took me out of my fitness game, period. I felt so defeated. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay because my focus has to be, I have to fix the relationship with myself and with food. And so my mindset, right, was the biggest thing I worked on. And it took me 6 months because it was hard. It was really hard. I had to learn how to be social and still be in this journey. I had to learn how to, be busy and still be in this journey. I had to learn how to be a mom and be in this journey. I had to learn how to be a corporate woman in this journey. I had to learn all of that. And it took a long time. Yeah. Right? A lot of frustration and patience. But, eventually, just like every habit, it just becomes second nature.
You figure it out. And again, I thank you for sharing your burpee story. Right? Because I'm sure there are people that are listening right now. They're like, okay, what's a burpee? Right? They may not know, or they really know, and they're like, I can't. She couldn't do a burpee, right? Like that. But that openness is what helps people get over the hump and realizing there may be things that you have to figure out about yourself before you go. Trying to run a marathon, right? Just that piece. I love that you did that. Okay, so now you get down 60 pounds and now slowly but surely you start that. What did you start doing first? Were you running? Were you doing CrossFit? What were you doing?
No, what I did was, so I took weekly pictures, right? Because pictures showed more than a scale, right? And so every week, and I was looking at my pictures, I'm like, man, I look like Gumby and, like that straight looking weird body. Yeah. Like a kid, like a kindergarten, and I'm like, I better get to the gym. So I went and got a gym membership, and I walked to the gym a couple times. I'm on YouTube. What am I doing? I'm like, oh, this sucks.
Everybody feels this exact way.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so I hired another online trainer. who is actually like a brother to me now. And he gave me some workouts. And in some of my workouts, there was some HIIT routines. And I'm like, I got to do 10 burpees and 10 push-ups and this. And then I would do it by myself, but I'm like, 6 burpees. No one knows, right? And I'm like, I need some accountability. I need that accountability. And because of my schedule, the only time I could work out was at 4 a.m. And so I was, at the time, in my community, I was the president of the HOA for about 7 years. So everyone knew me. So I went on the Facebook page and said, hey, who wants to work out with me at 4 a.m. in my garage?
Oh my god!
And a few people replied, and one showed up. And then we posted the picture on social media. Yeah. And they're like, hey, what are you guys doing? Yeah. And they're like, we're working at 4 a.m. Want to come? And right, it's the power of social media. Yeah. People want to be a part of something. And then I started to realize weeks and weeks going in as we grew, I'm like, wait a minute. They all need what I need. They all need what I need. And I didn't stop.
That's super cool. So I'm imagining you start these workouts and you're just trying to figure it out just like everybody else, right? You're not trying to say, hey, I know everything, right? It's like I got this workout. Will you do it with me? I love that.
Exactly what it started off to be.
I love that.
Yeah, we're like, yep, this is how you do it. Let's go.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And how long ago was that?
That was 2015.
January
2015.
Is this group still meeting?
Yes.
Get out of here.
Yeah, we've actually evolved. My goal for this was it to actually be a global community movement.
Yes.
And so there's about 5 different workouts in my community. We have somebody, I used to do this at 4 a.m. And then my schedule changed. So now we had another girl who took over the 4 a.m. So she's like an ambassador. So she runs a 4 a.m. group. Yeah. I run a 5 a.m. group. There was another mom who now runs a 6:30 p.m. group. And there's another, the same mom, she runs like a 5 a.m. running group. And then there's a walking group.
Wow.
So we're all like, it's enemy, rise and grind, like no more excuses.
Say again, what's the name of it?
Enemy, so like no more excuses.
Ooh, I like that.
And then rise and grind.
Yes, I like that.
So we have our own Instagram and, we post our pictures there. And it was, I didn't understand the power of social media until then.
Okay. That's when you knew.
That's when I knew that people were just waiting to be a part of something.
Yeah. And your Instagram is awesome.
Thank you.
So for everybody, tell everybody your Instagram handle so they can start following you.
Yeah, it's at HelenCostaGiles.com. So it's HelenCostaGiles.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, so now you're in this place where you lose 90 pounds. And at what point, how long ago did you lose the 90 pounds? Like where you're like, okay, I'm literally 90 pounds lighter than where I was. Where was that? What year was that?
That was it was almost 2 years, not quite 2 years. It was a year and a half.
Okay.
And then in that year and a half, I took a different journey, which you don't see in there, as I got into physique training and bodybuilding.
Oh, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at some point you said, okay, I'm going to switch this up. And you started doing something. You started training differently.
Very differently.
Okay, talk about that.
Yeah. So I still ran my grind on 3 days a week. And then I would go to the gym and train myself because I got so excited that my body was doing what I asked it to do. I'm like, what else can this body do? So the same trainer, he was actually a physique coach and he trained women on stage. I did not want to go on stage. I absolutely have so much respect for that sport. Yeah. But I decided to do fitness modeling instead.
Okay.
Because it was just my journey, right? And so we did. We trained all the way up to it. I don't show it very much because I started to get worried about the social media aspect of it. And my target market is to help people like me.
Right.
And when people saw my abs and they saw me at like, 10, 12% body fat, then all of a sudden it became unrealistic for them. And that's not what I wanted to show. It just was my part of the journey. It was, I was very specific with CNN not to show it, but it's an important part because I learned now the new mental state of the body image. And that was a whole journey on its own.
Wow. Okay. So you literally transform your body. I mean, transform it from where you were in 2014, right? Yep. To where you're getting this, the doctor's basically saying, okay, listen, you're going to have to come back and we're going to take some medicine. And now we're 2 years later and you literally see your body transform.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I love what you said. What else can this body do? Take me mentally down that idea.
I think I just kept getting excited, right? I all of a sudden, I had a lot of pride in myself. And I went through the physical transformation, right? I looked good. Like I looked like I should have just went on a stage, but I didn't. But then I started to realize, okay, I look amazing, but how strong am I? But how strong am I really? So then I started training for Spartan races, and I took it down. I started to do OCR races, and I cut out the physique training, and I got into different training as well. And so I started racing through Spartan races.
Wow.
And finished trifecta and some other races. And I usually placed in the top 10 in my age group when I was doing them. But yeah, so I think you always need that next level for yourself, right? And for me, I had very audacious fitness goals. And so I had to figure out where I went in my fitness, right? I'm in a very different journey now because now I'm all about, personal development and where can I go next.
Yeah.
But when I was in that fitness part, it just kept evolving.
Yeah.
It was really good.
That's cool. Now that takes me back to what you said earlier, which is really interesting. Think about like the full circle moment. When you were talking to your trainer, she said, "What is your weight goal?" And you were like, I don't know, 20 pounds, like, right? And to a point where you go full circle to where you're like, what can my body do? Mm-hmm. What is possible?
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
From a mindset perspective, coming from where your journey began is so cool.
Yeah.
What was the biggest shift in your mindset to got you to even ask that question of what can my body do? What shifted inside in your brain, you think?
I literally think I went through my identity kept changing.
Okay.
Right. And I think a lot of that was me learning my new identity. I think a lot of people don't do that through a weight loss journey. And that's why a lot of people slide back because they don't change their identity. Not that I'm saying you have to be a different person, but you have to see yourself different. And if you don't see yourself different, no one else will. And so I had to continue changing my identity over and over again to match my current life.
Yeah.
Right. And, once I realized that's what I needed to do, it started to evolve. And then this new Helen, we always say Helen 2.0, Helen 3.0, Helen 4.0, right? Yeah. This new Helen kept thinking bigger and bigger and bigger. Now this Helen right now is currently limitless. There's nothing.
Right.
You can't tell me anything that I can't do now because it's just like, watch me.
That's stinking cool. So now let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What now that you've got this mental breakthrough, like I know what this body can do, and I know that it's done way beyond even what I thought in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So now take me to that personal development. Like, what's this next phase in terms of business wise? What are you doing business wise? Because you're no longer at that company now. You now have started your own speaking business. And what else are you doing?
Yeah, so I don't have a speaking business. I speak at a lot of events. I do a lot of events. I speak in them, and I speak for my my company. So I'm partnered. I'm a professional network marketer.
Okay.
And I'm aligned with a company called Isogenics, and
That's
we're a health and wellness company. And it was actually Isogenics that really helped me get through the transformation with the nutrition. And so I became an accidental entrepreneur.
Okay, yeah, I know that very well.
Yes, and it was funny because I was so against network marketing at first because I'm just like, but after 2 years of using the product and everyone wanted what I had, all of a sudden I got intentional about helping people. And then I got intentional about building a business. And then I got intentional about building a team. And I realized that my team, my business will only grow to the extent that I grow. And so I really had to focus on me. So my audacious fitness goals went to the side. I still work out. And then I had to work on how can I become a bigger, stronger leader? How can I become a better, how can I run my business better so I can help other people level up? Like, I don't want to be their lid. I don't want to be their cap, right? And so I knew if I grew more, that the people with me would grow more too. And it actually shows in my fitness group because I'm growing more, they're growing more. And so I know every time I take that extra step, I can help other people get there with me.
That's so cool. And then in 2017, you won a big award. Talk about that with Isogenics.
Yes, and the 2017 Grand Prize winner. So they have this 16-week challenge called the IsoBody Challenge. It's free for all customers. And what it is you just set goals 16 weeks apart. And that's what helped me really stay on target with my journey too is every 16 weeks, I would take my before picture, my weight, my measurements. And at the end of 16 weeks, I take a final picture, final measurements, and write my story. What happened to me in 16 weeks. I'm really good at sharing my story. And I got very vulnerable because it's important because I understand, like you said, to share the difficult part because that's where most people are right now. And so you have like, they award everybody who does the challenge, right, who've completed it, but then they go into a judging period and you can get honorable mention. You can become a finalist or grand prize winner. And I hit honorable mention in 2016, 2017 I was a finalist. And then 2017 in August, we all went to Vegas. We're in front of 35,000 people. And out of 35,000 people who were judging, I was the top story. And so I won $25,000, free trips. They took my husband and I to Costa Rica for like the best vacation ever. And it's just been amazing. So I traveled with them for a year and spoke at a lot of conventions.
Yeah.
And now I do things here locally in San Antonio, and sometimes I'll travel out of state, but I'm really focusing on San Antonio right now. It's where my heart is because I can see the potential here, and we need it. We need more people doing it. So it was really cool. It's just, I think at that point, it was really cool because my kids watched me win. My kids were in the audience. And now my kids think that they can do anything.
Which is cool.
You know?
Yeah.
It's really, I can't even explain what it did for them mentally.
Yeah.
Just to watch me. I don't preach anything to them. I don't talk diet with them. We don't talk about fat, skinny, nothing. They just watch.
Yeah.
And that is so much more powerful.
Yeah. Be the walking billboard that you
Yes.
want, right? Like
Yes.
be the walking billboard. So I'm imagining, so you win this award, and I mean that probably had to be like the beginning of this, the entrepreneurial part. Was that kind of like that piqued your idea of maybe I can make this a business?
It started before that. It started
Okay.
before that, definitely. It started before that, but it was like a hobby.
Ah, yes.
I was just playing with it, right? I knew the potential, right? Like I could build a legacy business, but I'm like, man, you work full time, you do this, you know. But it was after I won. I had spent a year in my corporate job. I was in account sales, and I worked with Tesla very closely. And I had to travel a lot to Palo Alto, and I had to travel a lot to El Paso. So I was either traveling with Isogenics or my corporate job, and so I didn't get to see my family. So from 2017 to 2018. I saw my family maybe once or twice a week. And I started to realize you have this opportunity for this business that you don't have to travel. You get to pick and choose your travel, and you get to take your kids with you, or you could stay at your corporate job. And so it was that moment where I was like, my family needs me here because they're very young. And I said, I have this amazing opportunity here. And so I made the decision to leave December 14th, 2018.
I know that was not easy.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was with them for 15 years.
Wow.
It's hard. It was like leaving family.
And I think there's people, and there's a lot of people that talk about this. Like Gary V. He talks a lot about like, the freedom or finances, right? Like this idea of, being able to go and try to do what you want, maybe make less money, right?
Yeah.
But you have that freedom, or the idea of, you're kind of shackled, right? Like there's like this, you have to take that job because you've developed a lifestyle based around those finances. So, so really it was the family. That was the piece that said, you know what, it's time for me to make this jump.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, my kids are super young, and it was very clear that they needed consistency in their life, and they weren't having it with me traveling everywhere. And just like it was, my husband and I were just talking about it. My 5-year-old came home yesterday with his report card, and he got on the honor roll, right? And from where he was at the beginning of the school year, where I wasn't around, it was really tough, right? And so just having some presence of, my husband and I being more consistent around. It was huge.
Yeah. So what's this new life like now? Now you're not going to a job every day, right? In terms of like, the employee mindset versus the entrepreneurial mindset. Tell me about that transition now, because there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that have thought about that idea. What's that been like?
I think the biggest thing is my schedule. I get to own my schedule. That is huge. I want to have lunch with my kids. I want to go have lunch with my kids. Right? I don't have to ask anybody. My kids are sick. It's great. I can go to my team and say, hey guys, I'm out for today. So somebody's gonna have to take my calls. If there's meetings, somebody else can take them. But just the fact that I own my schedule is massive. It is so huge. And, my kids are like, hey, can we ride our bikes to school? And I'm like, oh, it's gonna be 45 minutes anyway. And now I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Before it's like, I can't, I gotta get to work, and we got traffic, you know what I mean? And so I think just owning it, and there's so much freedom in it. There's so much freedom in it. Like being an entrepreneur is not easy,
No.
but I think the rewards that you get, whether it be with your family life or everywhere else, your personal, just mental sometimes is huge.
Yeah, I
huge.
love that. Okay, excuse me. For timing's sake, I know you have a hard stop, but I want to end with this because I number one, I want to say this for people that are listening is that listen, there are people in front of us that are around us that maybe you don't see. People like yourself, like Helen, that they've gone down the journey. They fought the mental demons. They fought the food demons. They fought the I don't ever want to do a burpee again demon, right? Like they fought these demons, but they've come through on the other side. And I'm so honored to meet you and to hear your story and you to be vulnerable, and just because sometimes people can get to that level and then they almost make it like, well, you can do this too, just go do it. Yeah. But they don't want to share the struggle. I think that's so important is you got to share. It's not easy, but you can do it too.
Yeah.
Right? Like speak to that just a little bit for people that are listening that may be going through that, just the struggle piece.
Yeah, I think your struggle is your story, right? It has to be, because without it, I wouldn't have been here. Like I briefly talked about Sienna, like my before picture, I hated it. I'd cry when I saw it, right? Like it was just the worst thing ever. I got really mad at my husband, like, why didn't you tell me my back looked like that? I'm like, seriously, dude? Like,
yeah,
oh man,
it's bad looking out.
Right? I was just like, but now I look at it and I almost cry because it's like that woman in that picture made the best decision of her life. And you have to remember, like, who you are now is not who you're going to be tomorrow or the next day, right? But I see that one photo, I made the best decision of my life. And someone just needs to make one decision. Yeah. And then from there, continue to make the decisions. And I always say that every decision you make, you can either choose to be proud of yourself or disappointed. Every decision.
So true.
Right? Am I going to work out? Yes or no? Am I going to eat this? Yes or no? Right? Whatever it is. Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of just making the decision and really finding that necessity for you.
I love it. Last question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So Tim Ferriss, you familiar with Tim Ferriss? 5 Hour Work Week. He wrote this other book called Tools of Titans.
I think I've heard of him, yeah.
So he has a book. It's basically, it has all these questions that he asks people all over the world, experts in their field, right? And so one of the questions is tell me a book that you give as a gift. What book have you read that you're like, this has meant so much. I need to give this to somebody?
Oh man, I do. I do give away the 4-year career because I'm in network marketing. There's a book about the 4-year career, so I do gift that one a lot.
Yes, I'm not familiar with this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's very cool. It's just a bunch of little stories. There's one just particular on women. There's one on men and women, just on people who have changed their lives. Becoming an entrepreneur through being a professional network marketer. Yeah. Right. And you get to hear the story from the stay-at-home mom or the military mom who's taking care of 3 kids, and for me, anything inspirational to show people anyone can do that. Anyone can do this.
Right. I love that.
I love that.
All right, the 4-year career.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, Helen, we really appreciate you being on TM3 Impact. I know that this is going to impact there's going to be people that listen to this that are going to be impacted by your story. How can they follow you? What are some other ways that they can learn more about your story and maybe where they can connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook too, Helen Costa-Giles, but I also have a website, and it's Enemy Lifestyle. So enemy meaning no more excuses, lifestyle.com.
And it's N-O...
No, it's just NME.
NME.
Lifestyle.com.
Okay, that's fantastic. We'll make sure to put this on the podcast on iTunes and on our YouTube for links. Thanks again for being on the show, Helen.
Thank you. This is fun.
This is we got to do it again.
Yeah, please.
I think we need to do it again and maybe have one of the people from your neighborhood.
Yes. Oh, they would love that.
Just to share what that influence has brought to their life. Because I'm gonna imagine you've been doing this you've impacted so many people. So we got to do it again.
Yes, for
awesome.
sure. I'm up
Thank
for
you
that.
so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Awesome.